Hey guys, Less is More back with another video. I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded a video. Uh, you know, a good bit of life changes have occurred since I last uploaded a video. Not bad necessarily, just different in terms of where there have just been some developments in terms of my professional um, endeavors. But anyhow, still playing full time, and I've taken a position with Run It Once, and I'm making content for them, and having a good time doing that, and just grinding high stakes online. So uh, yeah, having a great time. Anyhow, uh, today's video is going to be hands where I faced an all in on the river. This is I think this is going to be mostly at Bovada 510. There might be some 1020 mixed in. So we'll see. Let's hop right into it. Okay. Um, open king nine of diamonds. Face a small 3-bet from what is likely a fish. So the big blind bets half pot. Um, so with the king high in the back door and the back door straight and everything, I think this is a pretty straightforward float imposition, especially given how small the big blind 3-bet pre. Uh, I'm not. I guess this would be. I guess this would be towards the bottom of our call range pre. Um, I'm not sure if I would call king eight of diamonds, but this would probably be close to the bottom. But I think given that we're 100 big blinds and we faced a very small 3-bet, so we're a little deeper going post. I think this is just going to be a float. Um, anyhow, so we turn the backdoor flush, draw, um, and he bombs it. So this is a relatively blank card, but could interact somewhat well with like ace five, ace four. Um, but it's a relative blank, big blank at 3-bet. Hands like 6-5, 5-4, but no real strong hands on this board besides overpairs and stuff that interacts with the queen. Um, but yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, each tree I do want to evaluate our options. So I don't think raising really accomplishes much. Like he's really just repping ace queen plus, and I think well obviously all the value hands would take this line at some frequency. I'm sure, setting up for like a reasonably sized river shove. I think. Let's see what's going to be the SPR on the river. So it's like almost pot. I think I'd rather set up for like a slightly smaller river jam. So like I think if I were in his shoes and I had like kings or ace queen or something, I think I'd just bet like 330, 350. Just because it's a 3-bet pot doesn't mean you can't overbet. I think that's a common misconception. Like people just typically don't bet over the size of the pot in 3-bet pots. I think people just think it's a mistake because of the SPR. But in reality, like once you get to the river, you're ideally there should be less than one SPR when you're jamming for value as the 3-better. Um, so keep that in mind. And we backdoor with a flush, so that's always nice. And we face a jam. Easy call. And king four. Um, probably a fish. I don't think that's a 3-bet pre. Maybe at low frequency. Um, but yeah, interesting hand. Um, Yeah, we don't have time to top off before the hand starts, but we open tens off 87 big blinds. Ace of 3 bets. All 984. So we actually donk this board. It's kind of interesting. The 9 and the 8 interact really well with our range. We definitely have some fours. You know, we're not going to pure call fours pre, I don't think, but yeah, we definitely have all the sets, and imposition definitely doesn't have those at full frequency. They have 9s and 8s, but definitely not 4s, and we're definitely going to have 9s and 8s at a higher frequency than imposition. And not to mention, we're going to have like all the stronger overpairs. Or not the stronger overpairs, the weaker overpairs like jacks and tens. I think even queens. Let me check the charts real quick. So, okay, so it's really just jacks and tens, and then 9s and 8s are going to be high frequency. So, yeah, we can donk this board a little bit, like these lower textures. Let me see. I know I said I was just going to discuss the river spots, but this is kind of want to double check that this is a thing. We have hijack versus cutoff. I have 983. Yeah, okay, should be sufficient. Sim would load, that would be nice. Okay, so it is a thing. And our hand is definitely a donk at some frequency. So, yeah, so we donk and we an imposition calls. Turn is the 8. So this is like a not a great card for us because it eliminates you know, some of our stronger hands. And you know, if you had like 9s in the spot, it sort of incentivizes you to slow down because like imposition can't have a 9 and you can't get raised and stuff like that. But yeah, the main thing just being like it eliminates like you know, several combos of 8s and 9-8 that you can have. And then another, well, I think the biggest thing is that the 8 doesn't give you any improved, like newly improved hands. So now when you donk and imposition calls, the equity shifts back towards imposition, even if the board was slightly good for out of position. Yeah, sort of how it works is like, you know, if you bet a given street and face a call, then typically the equity shifts to the caller. However, you know, on like, you know, if the turn was like maybe a 7 or a 10, you know, then you know, that opposition donker could retain their equity, but that is not a good part in terms of equity. So I'm looking at the sim over on the side. Like, if we donk and get called, yeah, like a 7 is really good for us. An 8 is not. An 8 is actually bad for us, reasonably, because it does eliminate 8s and 9-8. And then a 9 also bad. 10 quite good. So yeah, so sort of what I was saying holds in the sense that, you know, in a vacuum, the caller on a given street, the equity is going to shift in their favor. But on a card that eliminates a lot of better's value, you know, it's going to be quite bad for them. Or on a brick, you know, like on a deuce, that would not be, you know, a great card. So anyhow, check, face a bet, and we call. What the sim has to say about that. Check. Half. Yeah, our hand is a pure call. Makes sense. Because at at this point they're really just repping over pairs. So given we have the nut low over pair, it doesn't really make sense to raise. 4, and then we face a jam. And one thing I do want to say about this hand is, I knew at the time this was a friend of mine, um, because a hand came up and I sort of suspected it was him given the line, and I messaged him and asked him, and he said it was in fact him. So I did know that prior to the hand, and that this friend of mine is quite a good player. So I had to give him credit. I couldn't just snap fold the spot, because typically you like donk and like check call the turn. It's uh typically a hand that isn't going to be happy folding, so I'm not sure most people are going to be excited to bluff into that. Um, but I really have to give him credit for finding the floats against the quarter pot, or against the donk on the flop, because I think the biggest exploit in this hand to be had is overfolding the river, but simply because, like, on the flop, imposition's supposed to float like seemingly ridiculous hands, like, well, maybe not ridiculous, but maybe light, like ace six of spades, or like king jack of hearts. Yeah, I guess like some of the king high with a backdoor straight draw and no backdoor flush draw would seem to be like the most ludicrous, like king jack of hearts, um, king 10 of hearts, uh, and yeah, I do block some of those floats, but all the value hands block floats at some frequency. Um, Given that the 9 of clubs is on the board, I can't have like, well, I guess that would go the other way, but anyhow, it's hard to have a hand here that doesn't do a great job at unblocking floats. I mean, the lower pocket pairs would definitely be a tad bit better, but I mean, 10 specifically, it's not great either way. Anyhow, I knew this guy was not gonna just like lay down and die on the river, so I flicked it in, and it jacked. So well played by him. Uh, so raise call. Under the gun versus big blind. Check back call. Turn 10. Check under the gun overbets. We call. And we face a 3x pot river jam. So I would say, I mean, this hand really doesn't have much going for it one way or the other. I'd say it's slightly good, given that I don't know if he splits his sizes on the turn, but if he did, King X of Hearts would not go into this size. Or I'm sorry, like having the King of Hearts would incentivize him not to put that value hand. Like if he had Ace King with the King of Hearts, generally that would go into a slightly smaller size. So don't really like the King of Hearts isn't like really great or terrible one way or the other. It just doesn't particularly block much value. And then the Six of Hearts, I'd say I had to guess, is like slightly bad, but given like he might bluff like the lower, like if he opened like 7 6 6 5 of hearts and he barreled that off, um he might triple that hand. But yeah, it's really don't feel strongly about that one way or the other. I'd say it's like pretty neutral. I'd say that the best property of this hand is unblocking the Broadway gut shots and like um Queen 9, Jack 9, you know, Queen Jack, that sort of stuff that would triple. But really this hand's just indifferent. So wouldn't say it's I feel strongly about it one way or the other. I would say let's see if I have this board. King, king low low. Uh, no, no, not really. I just have king 6 5 rainbow. I can uh yeah, I don't feel super strong about this hand one way or the other. I don't know. I don't remember what I did, but just fold it. I do want to make some comments on exploitative adjustments, which is um a player has to be quite good to find sufficient bluffs on most runouts, given tighter configurations. Like if this was, button versus big blind, I'd be much more inclined to call, given how many natural bluffs there are. But given the tighter configuration, like even though it's a Broadway card, um, there's just like they don't have like Queen 9 off, Jack 9 off, that they're gonna put into this line. Maybe like button versus big blind, a player might open those hands and then um, you're triple those off exploitatively. And given that that isn't happening here, I'm assuming um, it's going to be much more difficult to find bluffs. Um, okay. Ace Jack of Diamonds. I ISO out of the big blind. This is interesting. So I generally just sort of split my ISO sizes against what I assume to be fish, depending on kind of what my hand wants to do. If it's a reg, I play a much more balanced strategy and sort of ISO much tighter. I should say if I suspect it's a reg. Because like on Bovada, it's really hard to tell if you face a limp and you're not really paying close attention. But we face a limp call from under the gun, so probably a fish. Hard to say. Okay, so I bet about half on Jack 9 9. I think that makes sense. It's like a slightly dynamic texture given like how many Broadway gut shots there are. And it's a it well, okay. It's a paired board, so like if we have an overpair here, we really want to use like a slightly bigger size so we can um size up on the turn and jam the river quite comfortably. But it's like it's not like a connected texture, and we want to like use a small size so we don't um have to tread with caution later. Like we're not really concerned about like waiting until later streets to pile money in with overpairs on this board. Um, and it's a jack high board, and in 3-bet pots you typically want to size up more, closer to half pot or maybe even 2/3. Just because you're gonna have hands like the hand I have that really want to size up. Um, and yeah, there's really just not a lot of hands that want to go small. Um, against really loose fish, exploitatively, you know, you can block like you know, ace king, ace queen. But I think generally just sizing up slightly and trying to pile money in with overpairs is generally the best strategy. Um, and yeah, really no reason to slow play. I actually don't like my size here. Um, yeah, I might be fallen to I might have fallen into the same mistake that I pointed out earlier in the video, which is uh players don't like to overbet in 3-bet pots, and for whatever reason I don't do it here. I think this is just such a clear cut overbet on the turn. Like you know, you can bet like 300 on the turn. So then the pot would be like 800 and you'd have like 650 behind. Yeah, I just hate this all around actually. So clear mistake by me. This is an interesting river. Mm, I think we're going to want to do a decent amount of checking on the river, given that the flush comes in. And think about a range. It's going to be like, you know, over pairs and then like some jack X. Um, well, some flushes ourselves, but I think um, just doing a good bit of blocking here makes some sense. Let me pull up a sim here. Let's do like it's like Jack 9 now. Sorry about the delay, but I don't want to take a look at this river. I'm not missing something here because this is kind of a dicey river. Half pot, full turn. River, a flush. Okay, well this sim is like because the SPR is 0.5 on the river. Sorry, I'm doing all of this stuff off screen, but want to make sure I get this right. Okay, yeah, so it looks like, given the SPR on the river, we're going to be doing tons of checking. You know, if the SPR was like 0.5, then it would make a lot of sense just to like jam a bunch with, you know, our you know, kings and queens and king jack or whatever. But on this river specifically, um yeah, we're really just going to want to do lots of checking. I think makes sense, like, you know, given the 2 SPR. We can't just like rip kings and queens for value anymore. And this is you know, quite a big equity shift in the favor of the imposition player. Uh, you know, given lots of their turn calls are going to be, you know, flush draws, and then and not to mention they probably put the vast majority of their 9x in this line. Um, could raise, hard to say. But yeah, and then the ace eliminates a lot of out of positions value. So yeah, I would say in general, just like do a bunch of checking on the server. I guess the fish, I could see arguments either way. Um, so yeah, that's an interesting strategy. I I don't know how I feel about that. Ace of raise, and we fold. Um, that fold is an interesting one. I guess against a fish, it could make some sense given given how prone they are to stationing and not really playing back against river bets. I think I would have liked to have just seen a smaller bet though. Like I really don't think this bet size makes much sense, like in theory or exploitatively. So I think if anything, I would have rather just seen like a block. But theoretically, we should just do a bunch of checking here. I think probably like the best play in practice is probably just block fold, given it's a fish. But I really just hate this. I think this is like the worst bet size of any of them. Raise, call, fold. Um, oh, this is just a fish, I suppose. Then the fish 3x jams. When a fish overbet jams, generally just lean towards folding. Don't try to level yourself too much. They like fish don't really think of it like this. Fish are not typically going to go out of their way, to make these huge overbets. Um, like they don't really recognize which spots are good to like bluff or not. Like they don't really think deeply about the game in that sort of sense. So um, in fish bluff, they just kind of bluff for normal sizes, smaller sizes. Whereas if they have a value hand, they see like, oh, I have the nuts. I should probably just bet massive and try to get called. Um, there's obviously exceptions, and certainly there are on Bovada, but that's the general consensus when playing against fish is like don't call overbets. So the button 3-bet small. Oh, this is spicy. I honestly don't remember this hand, but okay, we 4-bet eights. Low frequency, I suppose. Okay, so I have a good amount of ace king here, but really not. Okay, let's see. Low jack open. Yeah, we're gonna have all the ace king suited and then most of the ace king off and kings and then like some 4-bet bluffs like king queen king jack king 10. Um, and then facing our 4-bet in position is gonna flat a lot of ace king off and aces. Um, and then like king queen and then like the queens through tens. So yeah, this is definitely a better board for the out of position player. Uh, given we bluff a lot of king x pre, like king queen king jack king 10, so it's definitely a better board for us on the flop. I'd say range betting flop is probably fine. Um, and then the turn is interesting. So uh, turn is interesting. So yeah, imposition is definitely gonna have to overfold this flop. But they still have plenty of like ace king and aces to defend with. I would say, I mean, this hand does do okay in the sense that it unblocks like every fold. Like if they float ace queen with a backdoor, um, they fold those hands, and then um, like tens through queens are probably just gonna fold turns. So actually, I think this bluff makes some sense. Um, and if they, I guess if imposition does have like something like a7 suited or something, it does block that. That would definitely call turn. So like a7 would be a7 of diamonds would be, or a7 of clubs would be a much better call on the turn than like tens, given how many more outs there are. So that's kind of spicy. I think I like this. Oh, and then give it. Oh, jeez, what a river. Oh, now I'm gonna have to like brain solve while I'm recording the video. I think my instinct is a lot of checking, especially given the flush draw turn. Not as much as the flush draw flop, but given a flush draw turn, definitely had to do some checking. Like ace queen, ace jack, ace ten of spades are all gonna get here. Um, but I think regardless of the river card, I think a lot of our weaker king X would just check. I think a lot of those hands would just check turn anyhow, but yeah, so like given the line, I don't imagine we have like a ton of ace X. Um, like we'll have some ace queen off, some ace five, ace four, but I don't think we want to jam those. So, oh geez, this is a weird river. So I suppose our value is just kings, aces, and ace king. I suppose what do I do here? So I suppose I think it would just make sense to do a bunch of checking on the river, and then yeah, you could like jam or check kings, I suppose. I'd say mostly jam. And then yeah, like check aces, and then mix your ace king, and then I think this hand you just like you just don't have a choice. You probably just have to stick it in. Um, I don't know if I had any reads in game or anything like that, but um, yeah, against like some really loose players, you could do something crazy like check call or something, but um, probably not. I probably just jam this river. I check. Oh, I call. Oh Jesus. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna guess I get shown ace king a lot, I suppose. What? Jesus Christ. Uh, okay. Well, I guess the lesson to be learned is never fold rivers on Bovada. Okay. Blind v blind, I open ace five of spades. Block the flop. Turn. I bet kind of big. I think I'd prefer slightly bigger. Um, Slightly bigger. It is like kind of a straightish completing turn, but I think I'd rather just like pot or check or something. Uh, Call 4, and I pot. I think on this river that makes some sense. Because there's no like 4x with a flush draw that like makes trips on the river, so it's like pretty hard to have a 4, and then um if you had like a king, just makes a lot of sense to go big on this river. Um, with like ace king or king queen or something. Um, Given like when a river pairs, it means that there's no newly improved 2 pair, so it just makes more sense to go thin. Um, so yeah, I think I like this size. I think I'd prefer something like slight overbet. But it's kind of whatever. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh my god, he had a 4. What? Oh, that's so rigged. So rigged. Okay. Blind v blind, open 3-bet call, check, half raise. How do I feel about this? I think I'd rather just continue as a call. Tried something like, ace 4 of hearts, ace 4 of spades. I'd be much more inclined to rip this in, but we just block a lot of the heart draws that we want to call. If we rip it in, we just get called by like a bunch of better flush draws. So um yeah, I think it makes more sense to just play as a call, given they typically aren't going to be like overbet jamming turns. Um well, maybe on this turn. Ace check though. Hmm. This is kind of interesting. For the reasons I stated that we don't want to rip in on the flop, I think I kind of like a rip on the turn. Um, because we can get better flush draws to fold, and yeah, really, really the main thing. We can get those better flush draws to fold, and um, we play all of our value hands, the same way. Like, check raise call, and then when out of position checks, we rip the turn. So we could possibly get some folds from some worse pairs. Um, and not to mention, like, if they had like ace 4 of diamonds, or ace 6 of diamonds, or something like that, or maybe even 9-8. We can get plenty of folds and not have to like face a river jam with king high. Um, I think that's a big thing, is not letting their bluffs realize, and not letting their bluffs like stab the river and win. So I think I just like ripping this hand. But I check. Oh, hit a king though. A lot of outs. Um, yeah. Once we hit top pair in a 3-bet pot, like especially on this run out, yeah, you just never fold. Especially a king this good. Like they could probably just value jam any king. So definitely have to just snap this off. Sure, the 6-8. That's interesting. I don't see how they check the turn. Like they can get a They unblock like every better flush draw that would fold to a jam. I don't really understand why they would check the turn after check raising. Because like if they check, especially on this double flush draw turn, like we're just gonna rip over pairs. Like we're not gonna do a bunch of small betting. So yeah, like they're gonna check, we're gonna jam, and they probably have to fold, given it's like over a pot size jam. So the line with this hand does not make sense to me. I can get behind checkers flop jam turn, but this line specifically just seems suboptimal. All right, we'll do one more hand. Like three bet the big blind against the cutoff. 8-4-4. I think I just default to like half pot or check. Yeah, half pot call. Turn 3. Given we have a heart in our hand, that's slightly good to barrel. I mean, just continuing with a heart is just better in general. With this hand, on the rainbow turn. So yeah, I think we have enough ace high that we can just generally play this hand as a check call. Yeah, I think I just like check call with this hand. Okay, we check call the turn. I like it. Their value range is generally just going to be like lower pocket pairs, some 8x, 5-4, stuff like that. That's an interesting river. When we face a jam, this is like an 80% pot jam. Our hand's definitely indifferent, but yeah, I think ace king with the king of hearts I think is just really nice. Against the half pot on the flop, they probably have to float lots of like king queen king jack with a backdoor. I think I would prefer to have ace of hearts, king of spades, but I think this definitely has to call the river at some frequency. Yeah, so it doesn't matter too much, but I think I'd say at mid stakes there's definitely some guys that would get kind of cagey on the river with if they had like pocket sevens, pocket sixes, they would get kind of scared and just want to check back and show down. So I think against those guys you just have a snap call on the river just because like they just don't value jam nearly thin enough. So that's definitely something to consider, like when bluff catching a spot is like, does this player value jam as thin as they should? And like it's pretty easy to find bluffs. It's like, okay, I have queen high, I should probably try to bluff them off ace king or whatever. But if they aren't jamming like pocket sevens here, then it's like, okay, well I should probably just like snap it off. They have like a bunch of bluffs and then like not as many value bets as they should. So let's see what they have. Oh, we got him. Nice. Nice. Kind of a dicey float on the flop. Probably indifferent. Seems a little light. Okay, so that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. I don't know when my next video will be up, but see you guys then.